Going to move on to business now here on France 24. Owen Fairclough here, and the cost of employing people. Top of the French agenda this Monday. Cost of employing you, anyway, Owen.
Stuart, that 50th anniversary of the reconciliation between France and Germany over the weekend, with those images of Chancellor Merkel and President Hollande, leave no doubt about France and Germany's commitment to peace. But these are two economies who are rapidly diverging. France is essentially a more expensive place and more expensive than most Western European economies to actually make things. And that's weighing down on the unions and the government as the two of them get together to decide how to give the French economy a bit of a lift. Catherine Gillam has the story for us.
As Germany powers ahead, France is feeling blue. Its share of European exports has fallen from 15.7% to just under 13% in a decade. The new French president has vowed to make the country's economy more competitive, yet he's just put up the minimum wage by 2% to €9.40 an hour. It's making it harder for France's companies to compete with their German counterparts who have no minimum wage requirements. They also pay less social charges for each of their employees in Germany. Average labour costs in France are €34.2 per hour compared to €30.1 in Germany, both above the EU average of €23.1. Some are suggesting that social charges should be shifted onto other taxes, but the French government disagrees.
We refuse the idea that an increase in VAT is a solution to the problem. It's neither economically nor socially. We think it would be detrimental to consumption and would be unfair on the spending power of those who would be affected.
The Hollande government needs to do something to keep its election promises of boosting growth and creating employment. And they could do worse than following Germany's example, where the unemployment rate is almost half that of France's.
I know, and there does seem to be a little bit more consensus going to this meeting, doesn't there, between the unions and the government? But how much are they actually going to achieve?
It's a good question to ask, and how long would it take, perhaps, to put these reforms into place? Well, 10 years might be a reasonable guess. That's pretty much how long it took the German economy, seen as the model of manufacturing and competitiveness in Europe, to reform its labour laws, bring its manufacturing costs down to a level which made Germany really lean. And it partly explains why Germany is really the economy to beat right now. Remember, economy that tends to do better than all of them, keeps its head above the water compared to France. And the Germans as well, they had to wait, and really there was a sense that the government had to really impress upon employees that they would have to wait out any kind of pay rise. A couple of months ago, around 4 or 5 million German workers got a pay rise, but they'd had to wait around 5 or 6 years for that. You have to wonder with French unions, with their track record on calling strikes and their general sort of militant tendencies, whether they'd be willing to wait that long for any kind of pay rise as the government made the economy more competitive.
And François Hollande, he's held himself to fortune a little bit? Well,
a little bit, because, of course, one of his declarations on the campaign trail was, "I will balance the budget." He was trying to soothe those fears among businesses that France's budget deficit would explode under a socialist government. He's trying to take the careful approach, bringing down that budget deficit to 3% of GDP in line with new EU budget rules. The problem with doing that, then, is you have to put spending freezes in place. You have to cut back here and there. Is it really the time for a government to be able to incentivise employers to actually make their labour costs a little bit less? The government's already said it doesn't want to raise VAT. That was one idea. If you raise VAT, that would help you pay to trim back payrolls a little bit and make employment a little bit cheaper. The socialist government don't want to do that. They don't think it makes sense. So the questions have to be asked: where do they manage to bring in the money to pay for these kind of reforms? We're going to get more details of that over the next couple of days or so as that conference kicks off later this morning.
Excellent stuff. All right, Owen, what about the Asian markets then? Start of a new week, of course. How are they feeling about things?
A little bit of that Monday feeling, I think it's safe to say, on the Asian markets, with all of the indices feeling the heat a little bit from some unimpressive job creation data from the US at the tail end of last week. So you can see there the Nikkei down by just over 1% and the Hang Seng around 1.5% off during the afternoon's trading.
A few more headlines for you now then. Norway is braced for a total shutdown of its oil industry. A 2-week strike involving 700 staff is expected to see all 6,000 workers walk out on Tuesday. The government in Western Europe's top crude producer has been unable to resolve a dispute over a demand to retire at 62 instead of 65. The strike has so far cost an estimated €385 million.
The European Union is planning to draw up new legislation aimed at preventing a repeat of the Barclays LIBOR scandal. Financial regulators in Brussels say they'll criminalise the rigging of interbank lending rates. Barclays chief executive Bob Diamond was forced to resign over it. And the row over how much the UK government knew about the scandal will be reopened later this Monday. That's when the Deputy Governor of the Bank of England gives evidence to Parliament about the affair.
And the UK's Farnborough International Air Show opens with Airbus looking to boost its order book on its first plane made from plastic. The France-based plane maker is building a new version of its A350 Mini Jumbo from a carbon composite, ready for service next year. It's trying to steal market share from Boeing, whose Dreamliner jet is catering for airliners who need to save money on fuel with lighter long-haul planes.
Now, I think it's safe to say that Pamplona's running of the bulls is probably one of the most terrifying spectacles in the world. And yet every year it draws tens of thousands of visitors from across the globe who all want a chance to run and try and avoid, I think, getting gored. One of Spain's most famous spectacles happens in a city where the unemployment rate is less than a third of the national average. But belt tightening among visitors has led to some frayed nerves among many of Pamplona's bar and hotel owners.
Providing food and drink for the partygoers in this bar in Pamplona is a round-the-clock job for Maria. This year, more than ever, the 9-day festival of San Fermin provides a vital economic boon for the city. Like elsewhere in Spain, Pamplona has been hit hard by the crisis. Unemployment is up while living costs have also risen. So an influx of thirsty tourists can only be good news.
We really hope that lots of people will come. We have calculated that it represents a third of our turnover. We want to see lots of foreigners, French, Australian and English.
Around 500,000 tourists visit Pamplona over the course of the festival. The main attraction is the bull run, where people risk serious injury running ahead of the bovines through the narrow streets. As a reaction to the economic climate, the city has cut its festival expenditure by nearly 10% to €2.4 million. It's a tightening of the belt that is matched by the visitors, who are nonetheless determined to have a good time.
We bought all our food and stuff before coming. We're ready to spend a bit if we have to, and we can worry about the crisis tomorrow. We want to have a good time and be happy. That's why we came here.
While people may be entering into the party spirit, these are tough times indeed. Hotel reservations are down, and even the Café Iruña, the most famous bar in town where Ernest Hemingway was known to drink, is struggling to match the profits of years gone by.
Fancy taking on a raging bull, Owen?
I've always fancied that, although having heard the experience of some friends who've been, I'm not sure. I hear it is absolutely, there's no sensation like it, but then there wouldn't be if you're being chased by a 600-kilogram bull.
Yeah, not much good for animal lovers either, is it? All right, Owen, thank you very much. More from him, of course, coming up a little bit later on. Latest news headlines with Kat Nicholson, who's here this week after the break.